When did you have to choose between two lives? My 16-year-old daughter Iris was battling leukemia. The only match for a bone marrow transplant was her twin brother Vince, but Vince had been in a coma for 3 months after a motorcycle accident. The doctors said the procedure could harm him. We can wake him up artificially for the surgery, Dr. Kessler explained, but his brain injury is severe. There's an 80% chance he won't survive the anesthesia. If he does survive, he'll likely never wake up again. I stared at both my children through the hospital glass. Iris, bald and skeletal, hooked to machines. Vince, peaceful but broken, breathing through a ventilator. How do you choose which child gets to live? My wife Corinna had already made up her mind. Iris is getting worse for certain. Vince might recover someday. We can't sacrifice our son to maybe save our daughter, but Iris only had days left. I watched her yesterday trying to write goodbye letters with hands that barely worked. The worst part? Vince had caused his own accident. He'd been street racing after we grounded him, under the influence, reckless, showing off for some girl. Iris was fighting for her life because of her brother's choices, and now that same brother was her only hope. I signed the consent forms without telling Corinna. She found out when the surgical team wheeled Vince away. She was devastated with me in the hallway. "You just lost our son." The other families stared as security helped calm her down. The surgery took 6 hours. Iris's procedure went perfectly. Vince's didn't. His heart stopped twice on the operating table. When they finally got him stable, the neurosurgeon pulled me aside. We had to resuscitate him. The brain damage is now extensive. Even if he wakes up, he won't be the same Vince. Corinna wouldn't speak to me. She spent every moment beside Vince's bed, holding his hand, whispering apologies. I sat with Iris as her color slowly returned. "Is Vince going to be okay?" she asked. I couldn't answer. 2 weeks later, Vince opened his eyes. But Corinna was right. It wasn't Vince anymore. He couldn't speak, couldn't recognize us, couldn't feed himself. The doctors called it severe cognitive impairment. My brilliant son, who'd been accepted to MIT, was gone. Iris was thriving. Her cancer was in full remission. She started gaining weight. Her hair grew back. She graduated valedictorian and got a full scholarship to medical school. She wanted to become a pediatric oncologist to save kids like herself. But Vince never improved. Corinna divorced me and became his full-time caregiver. "You chose Iris over Vince," she said as she packed. "Now live with that choice." I moved into a studio apartment and saw Vince every Sunday. He'd stare blankly at me, no recognition in his eyes. 5 years passed. Iris called me crying from her second year of medical school. "Dad, I need to tell you something about the accident." My blood went cold. Vince wasn't under the influence that night. I lied to the police. I was the one who'd been drinking. Vince was driving me home from a party because I was too impaired to drive. Everything I thought I knew crumbled. Vince saw the other car running the red light. He swerved to protect me. The impact was on his side because he chose to save me instead of himself. Iris was sobbing now. "He's always been protecting me, Dad, even when I was hurting him." I hung up and drove straight to Vince's care facility. I sat beside his wheelchair and took his hand. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry I blamed you." For the first time in 5 years, Vince squeezed my fingers, just slightly, but enough to know some part of him was still in there. That night, I called Corinna. Iris told me the truth about the accident. Silence. Then quietly, "I know." Vince whispered it to me the night before his surgery. He said, "Save Iris." She didn't mean it. We'd both known. But sometimes parents lie to themselves about which child deserves to live. The truth was, Vince had been choosing Iris's life over his own long before I ever signed those papers. I never chose between two lives. My son had already made that choice for me.